January 11, 1944. Northern Italy, the night hung heavy with winter fog, thick enough to mute footsteps and swallow the last traces of daylight. Among the olive groves and stone terraces, a narrow mule path twisted upward toward a ridge held by German infantry. The air smelled of damp earth and old smoke, and somewhere in the darkness a single metallic click echoed, soft, almost insignificant, yet destined to reshape the fear inside every German soldier who heard it. It was the sound of a PIAT being armed, a simple, hollow metallic snap, a sound that would soon become a quiet omen of disaster. Before this moment, most German units had regarded Canadian infantry with cautious respect but manageable confidence. They believed Allied anti-tank weapons were loud, clumsy, and easily detected. They believed ambushes required artillery or complex coordination. And above all, they believed their armored vehicles, half-tracks, assault guns, and even the lighter marks of Panzer IV, held an advantage against infantry on broken ground. The war had taught them to expect many things, but not what this new darkness concealed, not silence, not accuracy, not the unpredictable explosive strength of a weapon they barely understood. The projector, infantry, anti-tank, the PIAT, had been mocked by some Allied troops upon introduction. Its spring-loaded system was ungainly, its recoil notorious, its shape awkward. But for Canadian forces fighting in Italy and Normandy, it offered something their German opponents seldom anticipated: the ability to strike armor and fortified positions without revealing themselves. No backblast, no flash, only that small metallic snap, like two iron rods meeting in the cold night. That sound would become the recurring symbol of Canadian pressure. A weapon whose silence represented an Allied technological philosophy built not on abundance, but on ingenuity under constraint. Before this moment, most German units had regarded Canadian infantry with cautious respect but manageable confidence. They believed Allied anti-tank weapons were loud, clumsy, and easily detected. They believed ambushes required artillery or complex coordination. And above all, they believed their armored vehicles, half-tracks, assault guns, and even the lighter marks of Panzer IV, held an advantage against infantry on broken ground. The war had taught them to expect many things, but not what this new darkness concealed, not silence, not accuracy, not the unpredictable explosive strength of a weapon they barely understood. The projector, infantry, anti-tank, the PIAT, had been mocked by some Allied troops upon introduction. Its spring-loaded system was ungainly, its recoil notorious, its shape awkward. But for Canadian forces fighting in Italy and Normandy, it offered something their German opponents seldom anticipated: the ability to strike armor and fortified positions without revealing themselves. No backblast, no flash, only that small metallic snap, like two iron rods meeting in the cold night. That sound would become the recurring symbol of Canadian pressure. A weapon whose silence represented an Allied technological philosophy built not on abundance, but on ingenuity under constraint. The German soldiers climbing the ridge that evening expected a typical skirmish: mines, occasional rifle fire, perhaps a burst from a Bren gun positioned along a wall. Their manuals stressed that Allied infantry relied on predictable methods. They understood bazookas, they feared the thunder of American tank destroyers, they even respected the British 6-pounder. But no training booklet prepared them for a weapon that could wait in absolute stillness, hidden in brambles or wine terraces, and strike a vehicle before anyone realized Canadians were in range. Historical reports from the 1st Canadian Infantry Division note that the PIAT became most devastating in ambushes less than 50 meters, distances so close the Germans believed no modern anti-tank weapon could be effectively used. In many after-action accounts recorded by German officers in early 1944, an unsettling pattern emerged: vehicles were destroyed without blast signature or predicted warning. Infantry squads were pinned down by explosives that seemed to materialize from the earth itself. The shock was not merely tactical, it was psychological. War is often an equation of sound, expectation, and response. When sound is removed from the calculation, fear fills the empty space. By March, German units began referring to certain ambush zones in Italy as still corridor, silent corridors, a term derived from multiple reports describing unexpected losses inflicted by invisible Canadian teams. The PIAT's quiet launch allowed Canadian soldiers to fire and withdraw before German counterfire could locate them. The German expectation had been that any Allied anti-tank attack would begin with smoke, flash, or noise. The reality was a sudden eruption of fire from a hedgerow, a vineyard, or a cramped street where Italian stone amplified shrapnel and shattered morale. The German infantrymen who relied on discipline and preparation soon faced a new kind of uncertainty. Veterans wrote of vehicles burning before commands could even be shouted. Others reported that a single PIAT shot broke advancing formations that had been steady all morning. What should have been a manageable encounter against lightly equipped infantry turned instead into a chaotic scramble across terraces and drainage ditches. The PIAT's bomb, a crude but effective shaped charge, could penetrate up to 100 mm of armor under ideal conditions. Against German half-tracks and assault guns navigating narrow roads, this meant even the suggestion of an ambush could stall an entire battalion. Historical German field notes recovered after the war reveal phrases like unexpected explosive force, silent threat, and impossible to detect position before impact. These descriptions show not only tactical frustration but a deeper emotional shift, an erosion of confidence in weapon superiority that Germany had long considered its advantage. Canadian infantry, often underestimated earlier in the war, now wielded a tool that brought parity where none was expected. The recurring symbolic sound of the PIAT, that single metallic snap, became in many ways a reflection of Allied democracy itself. Not abundant, not refined, not elegant, but resourceful, adaptable, effective in unexpected ways. The weapon did not represent superiority through wealth or mass production. Instead, it represented a form of ingenuity in adversity, a system designed under rationing, perfected through field improvisation, and wielded by soldiers who fought in harsh landscapes far from home. For German troops, accustomed to the mechanical sophistication of their own arsenal, encountering a silent ambush weapon that defied their assumptions felt like an ideological blow. If their tanks could be destroyed by infantry concealed in a vineyard trench, what else could be turned against them without warning? As the war progressed into Normandy, the shock deepened. Canadian forces used the PIAT to neutralize German strongpoints in places like Authie, Buran, and the outskirts of Caen. German officers writing post-war memoirs noted that the PIAT forced them to alter tactics, spreading armor farther apart, avoiding natural choke points, and advancing more slowly through terrain previously considered safe. The psychological impact was measurable. Even unconfirmed PIAT sightings slowed German maneuvers. The metallic snap, whether real or imagined, dictated movement. The weapon reshaped battlefield rhythm. What had been steady German advances became halting pushes. What had been calculated assaults dissolved into caution. In a war where momentum often dictated fate, the PIAT's presence alone could distort the tempo of entire operations. This transformation, from mechanized certainty to infantry vulnerability, marked a turning point in German perception of Allied ground capability. By late 1944, surrendering German troops sometimes described the PIAT as the Canadian ghost weapon, a phrase that circulated quietly, never officially recorded in manuals but noted by Allied interrogators. The term reflected not the weapon's physical characteristics, but the emotional weight it carried, the fear of an unseen threat, the loss of confidence in armored protection, the unpredictability of combat against determined infantry. In retrospect, the PIAT was not the most advanced anti-tank weapon of the war. It was heavy, difficult to cock, and offered limited range. But its effectiveness in Canadian hands did not rely on technical perfection, it relied on the human factor, patience, discipline, and a willingness to strike at impossible distances. These qualities shaped the PIAT into something far more impactful than its designers intended, a symbol of how democracy and determination could transform a flawed tool into a decisive battlefield equalizer. When historians analyze the emotional dimensions of warfare, they often overlook the small sounds that define a soldier's memory. Yet in the hills of Italy and the hedgerows of Normandy, one sound lingered in the minds of German infantry for years, that metallic snap in the cold air. It was the sound of danger approaching without warning, the sound of invisibility becoming power, the sound of an unexpected force challenging an empire that believed itself invulnerable. In the end, The PIAT symbolized something larger than ambush tactics or battlefield innovation. It became a quiet metaphor for the Allied way of war, imperfect, improvised, sometimes underestimated, but relentlessly effective. Democracy did not always arrive with grandeur or machinery. Sometimes it arrived in silence, hidden beneath olive branches and hedgerows, carried by soldiers who believed in something greater than themselves, and long after the fires faded and the fronts moved on, the echo of that small metallic snap remained, a reminder that in the vast machinery of global conflict, even the simplest weapon, in the right hands, could alter the momentum of history.